Welcome to MT Fridays. We're Melonya Johnson, owner of BSMART Coaching, and Tahitia Timmons, owner of Conscious by Us. Together, we're here to fill your Fridays with unscripted conversations that cover the gambit: politics, current events, science, social justice, health and wellness, and more. We're here to elevate the conversation. We're fighting the brain drain, one unscripted conversation at a time. So grab your coffee, tune in, and let's dive into another episode of MT Friday.
Hello.
Hello, Tahisha. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, it's it's cold in the Northeast. Melania and I are in the Northeast, and I think it's just making us tired or something. I
Not,
don't
it's,
know.
it's not making me tired. I'm understanding that winter. If you are not a fan of winter, it's painful. We've just entered into the suffering season, where where it's cold. I walk the dog; her paws get cold, and we're just so used to. We've walked several times a day, and we're in the park every day, and this is just well. But here's the for those, and if you suffer from seasonal affect disorder, hold on. I got my little happy light. I had it this morning while I ate my breakfast. But on the 21st is the winter solstice, and after that, the days start to get longer. That is what I hold on to. All winter. It's like it's getting lighter.
The 21st of December.
Yes.
So really, it's not really that long of a time period that the days are long.
No.
I mean, the nights are long.
You know what?
Could be worse.
I'm just not a whole winter person. The snow is beautiful and all, and I can appreciate it, but I don't like being cold. That's just not fun. That just doesn't feel good. But let's get into, because I have a question for you.
Oh.
You're like, oh. So I received, and for those who are joining us, we talk about it all. We talk about a lot of different things, and I received a request from LinkedIn to comment on a post that they had made, and the post was, "What trend or idea do you think will have the biggest impact next year?"
Whew. That is a question,
Isn't
right?
it?
Yeah. Because there are so many trends that come out in a not to like beat the capitalism drum, but I feel like we're trendy, way too trendy, right? Like, but I'm guessing because it's LinkedIn, this is a business trend and or like a thought trend. And I can only think that AI and assisted technologies driven by AI will continue to be the big trend in business and social services as we get better at using it, as we get better at creating comp instructions for it. And then I think there'll probably be this growing subset of creators and thought leaders who are kind of tapped to make sure that AI is not taking over and destroying the world, like in this Harlan Ellison book that I'm reading right now. It's short stories by Harlan Ellison. I think I terrified you with that one that I told you about how it like just tortured like 5 people, and I will find the name of it eventually. Oh, I have no mouth and I must scream is
Yes.
the story. So but that's my thoughts on it. What's your thoughts on about it?
Well, I thought that, okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'm really an optimistic person, but I'm kind of the dark side of the moon too. And so, my thought is that corporate greed will go really kind of unchecked now. And I think
Nah,
that, yeah, I think it will go unchecked, and I think that there will be pressures for because corporate greed will go unchecked, there will be higher costs, and I think wages will remain stagnant, and I think that that will greatly impact still the trend of it being difficult for employers to find employees because
Mm.
and also coupled with the fact that many companies these days are deciding to do away with DEI, right? For some, especially some of the younger generations out there in the workforce, those kind of values are still important to them. And so I think there is a mindset or trend these days to keep going back towards pre-pandemic work culture and organizational structure. I think that doesn't benefit women, it doesn't benefit minorities, and I think it's going to portend a difficult time for people to find and keep good employees and attract them. But what I do say this is that companies who still uphold the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion and live by them, companies that understand that there are different people in the workforce and they need and want different things. I think that companies that understand the needs of women and the demands of women, the whole woman, the woman who is the single mom or the woman who is the caretaker or these types of things. I think those companies will attract great talent, and I think they'll thrive. And I think that other companies who don't adopt more innovative types of work cultures, I think they will have a consistent churn of turnover.
And I just want to say, you're not just speaking out of your uh, from no experience or knowledge. Melania spent time in HR.
I still am in
So,
HR.
yes, and
Yeah.
you're still in HR. So, I think when you talk about hiring and how hard it is to hire people, we also, and you mentioned the hiring cycle, we have to think about the hiring cycle and the burnout rate and what is the culture like at organizations. So, I think you bring up a very important trend that we have to be aware of, which is people don't like to go backwards, right? Like once I have something, I'm less likely to want to give up that benefit or that sense of security and culture that certain companies have been embracing. And I don't know if the companies that really weren't in the DEI, like in it because they were in it for really culture change, which takes a long, like, change doesn't happen overnight. And those who are in education or training services know that behavioral changes don't happen overnight. And sometimes there's pushback from both ends, right? The top and the bottom on making real change that impacts people in workplaces. And so I love that you mentioned that because not being on the HR side, like I've worked with HR, but being more from like the education, like here's why we have to like in train. Like I've seen the other piece of it where people are just like, I don't want to do this stuff. Like tell me the value, like what's in it for me, type of things. So I love that you said that. So technology and perhaps hiring shortage or hiring difficulties might
Mhm.
be on trend for next year. And I also think we probably don't think enough long-term future when we think about companies, um, because every year, there's the how much did you make for the board for large corporate companies, and I think we're not being as future oriented because what's good today might not be good tomorrow, as in like all of the waste we're creating. And I know that's a big thing with you. Like, what are we doing with these products? What's the life cycle? For places that produce products, or like how do we make technology that doesn't have, which most companies build in, planned obsolescence? How can we make things better for the environment? Because I think I know I believe that there's 3 things, and I think you're on board with this: housing, education, and healthcare, that we should focus on more as a society, because those are the things we need to kind of, like, live our lives fully. And that brings us to something we said, like, privately. Melonya and I have been following this story, of the United Health CEO. And what I've been thinking about more as the assassination of, because he's a person in power,
Well,
and
I see.
it was targeted.
Well, let me say this: assassinations used to be associated with political figures. Now, so you know what I mean.
Corporations are political bodies to
Well,
me.
they are, but Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Okay, JFK was assassinated. He was shot.
Well, well, I'm not saying this person was bad, because I don't want to put any overlays on who this person is, but people who don't do great things also get assassinated too. You name 2 people we think of positively, but it's just a word. And he had power. Companies lobby, at least in the US, the government all the time. And if you look at some of the cabinet and power officials that are coming in, they come from
They
corporations.
do.
So corporations and companies really are, and they have been, this is nothing new, they are driving our government. And so what does it look like when you have these top officials and companies that have so much power, not just at their company, but influence in their industry and influence over our government and politics? That's why I'm saying assassination with this, because it was a target. It wasn't random. And you pointed out that he was one of the few that didn't travel with a security team. And which is in my mind, almost disturbing trend, that now, like, these company uh, CEOs and people in power, or people that just have more money than the general public, like most of us don't have millions of dollars, are now hiring private security details and details to help to make sure that they're safe. I don't know if I want to live in a society where we hate each other so much that uh, we would harm each other, because there's this widening gap between the haves and the have-nots in the United States.
Yeah, I think what was really very well, first of all, I think it's very interesting the fact that the heads of these healthcare organizations have to have a security detail, right? That tells you everything in terms of, but I mean, this man was worth like $49 million, right? His net worth was $49 million. Now, personally, I feel some kind of way about somebody making $49 million based off of other people's suffering. I don't think that healthcare should be a for-profit venture. I don't. You know what? Your name says Melonya too.
Oh my goodness. Why am I Melonya
I
too?
know there's only one
Why am I?
Melonya,
There's
and there's
only
only
one.
one Tahitia. Okay, but
All
so
right, gotta fix that.
I think there's that. But what I found really disturbing first, and Tahitia and I talked about this a little bit. What I found really disturbing about this story is, well, first of all, let me acknowledge the loss of life. Right. That's I hope that we as a society don't become so hardened that we feel that it's okay, because this man woke up going to an investors meeting. Okay. All right. Going
Yeah,
to,
but you know what? The truth is, every company has an investors meeting,
well,
okay?
right.
But I think some
It's
of the rage is that this is healthcare, right?
right.
Like, we should have, or health insurance, and we think there's this, like, elevated moral compass when it comes to the health industry. And I'm a nurse by licensure, and I say there's no saints there, okay? Like maybe at the clinical level there's some saints and people that are angels and wonderful individuals, but at the end of the day, healthcare in the United States and the health industry is a corporate machine, and it is a job for many people now that go into it. It is a way for them to make profit, especially at the top level. When you look at now, I'm not saying that this is like every hospital administrator, every person in health insurance that is at a corporate level, but it has become this sort of, well, profit, profit, profit. You need to make more profit every year, and not just from the top executives, but driven by their boards. When are we going to say to boards and people who are on boards, what's the community give back? What's your responsibility for that? Are you really looking at your denials and how you're denying people? Do you have disparities in here? And why are people angry? Right? People are angry because there are disparities. And as someone who is going through a health issue right now and seeing those costs and the differences between when I was underinsured and having, probably the insurance everybody should have, and then what my out of pocket is to get these tests done. At the end of this year, I'll probably spend $16,000 to find out whether or not I have, a positive or negative, if this is because I'm going through a breast scare right now, if this is a real issue or not. And the length of time, like, I've been on the side telling you about this stuff, but and even in the health field, I'm sort of surprised at all of the hoops and all of the, well, we're not going to pay for that, or here's how we're going to pay for this test because you're going to have it in a hospital. But if you have it here, it's cheaper. Same test, but different code for a test. Same machine, but different code for a test because one institution, has a different contract. And I think that is when there were two things that were so far in this breaking story on the bullets were inscribed delay, deny. And
And the code.
yes. And so far, I have not, and my fingers are crossed with that. I have not seen denials with the things that I've had, but I've seen delay. Like I've had tests canceled because we didn't get the authorization yet, or it was booked too soon, or, I can't have it at that facility because it's going to cost more. So they called me and they canceled the test, and then I couldn't get the test, even though I was like, I just want to know. And I had the privilege and a small savings right now to be able to say, like, I just want to get the test done. But people can't do that. I don't know how many days I would have waited or if it would have rolled over to another fiscal cycle. But going through this myself, I did have, and I told you I had a little bit of I had two thoughts. Um, and they felt bad afterwards. After I was able to reflect a little and when we both kind of paused, we were like, a life was lost. And I do feel bad that someone lost their life
You know,
over this.
well, you know what?
No life should be lost for this,
Well,
whether it's as
well,
a patient
on either
or
side,
as a
right?
CEO.
On either side. And I'll have to say
Yes.
that these days really test your humanity. I find that it really tests your humanity because what alarmed me about seeing, the headlines, I was in YouTube and I saw that, the thumbnail is that my first thought was not, I am having a hard time with light today. The
You
light,
look like an angel.
I am an angel, sharing some really angel like thoughts. Um, uh, I am having a
Well,
hard
that makes you
time.
human.
Yes,
So,
but
just for anyone watching, Melonya isn't a real angel.
but what disturbed me was the fact that I did not have immediate condolences. Right, I had thoughts. I'd had immediate thoughts, and they were not they did not entail any condolences at first, and that I found that to be disturbing for myself, because I consider myself to be a caring individual. Then I went into the don't never go never if you want to lose all hope in humanity, never go into the comment section, right? And
See,
so
and I love the comment
I
section
do
because it
too.
gives you a pulse of humanity, and I was actually scared looking at the comments section. Well, not scared, but I wasn't surprised, but it does give you a idea of
Here's
where
a
people are
couple.
going.
Medical debt is the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. No other country has this problem. So one of my thoughts along, because again, this man woke up to go to his job, and he didn't come home. He didn't come back to his family, and that's very real, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that I'll tell you kind of irks the hell out of me is the fact that we, as citizens of the United States, have had an opportunity to vote people into power that wanted to make universal health care a reality. And our politicians did not support that. They put the ACA up there that was diminished from the very beginning. It was
Mhm.
it was not affordable for many people still, even though some people were able to get coverage, and it helped cover some uninsured people. It could have been stronger. Other countries do medicine better than we do. And so this man did not have to lose his life. We could have, as citizens, voted to have a healthcare system that takes care of all folks. And yes, that means taxes, but my taxes go to support a war, right? Our taxes go to support many things that don't immediately serve us. I would be willing to pay taxes to make certain that every human being within this world receives the kind of health care that sustains life. Because as a civilized a civilization, right? We can do this. This is not out of the realm of reality, but yet we choose not to. And then we become angry and take people's this young man took somebody's life, and he's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. And so are this man's family and loved ones, and that is not what civilized societies do.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. The only thing I probably would add to this is that, universal healthcare is bad for private healthcare industry, insurers. And the reason why I say that is, we can vote as a society when things come up, but things don't often come up because corporations block them from even coming to the public, or they lobby so that they get a cadre of politicians who are willing for. And let's be honest, like when Trump said there was a swamp that he wanted to drain, there is a swamp in our government. He didn't drain it, but that's the truth. There's this whole deals that happen and lobbyists for corporations that are about their best interests. And who's really lobbying for the American public? We
No
hope that
one.
it's our regulatory agencies. We hope it, but those might be going away too. So I do kind of think this is, if anything, also a warning to corporations that are we at a tipping point when people feel so enraged? And I'm going to include the January 6th insurrectionists here because they're on the opposite side of that. I'm so angry that what I believe in did not come to pass. Like, are we at a tipping point in the United States where people are so upset about inequality or inequities, and also feeling like their voice is not heard or listened to? Are we at that point where corporations need to be fearful of private citizens taking action against some of their very destructive habits and policies? Um, you know, for I had open heart surgery 12 years, more than a decade ago. And that surgery, and I remember writing about it, um, for my surgeon, it was $800,000. That was his fee. The insurance company did not pay anywhere near that. But for a private citizen who doesn't have insurance, the bankruptcy issue is around one, the hospital, the healthcare system is billing you millions of dollars for life-saving treatment. You may be able to, if you spend a majority of your time, negotiate down that fee. But you are never going to pay as little as the health insurance companies have already contracted to pay. You are still going to be liable unless you decide you're going to bankrupt your entire life to, get through this issue. So not only are you worried about your health, but you're worried about like, well, now that I'm okay, like how do I live and survive? Because we also don't have anything for housing, and we don't really have education, childcare stuff. So for a single parent like me, that would have been devastating if I had not been at a private employer. And I still ended up, having to jump through a couple of hoops. When my daughter was born, we got a bill for her birth, but not for me, which I found fascinating, right? Like if you go into the hospital, the expectation to have a baby is you end up with a baby. I had some complications, and they sent us a huge bill for nothing to do with my birth, but just the care of the newborn. And I was like, how is this possible if we both went with insurance at the time that we ended up with a bill just for the baby? Turns out I was going to be going on my ex-husband's insurance, and we had not turned in the paperwork in time. So, the baby wasn't enrolled within a time period. New Jersey has some protections, so the cost ended up being covered. But small little things like that you may not know about can all of a sudden lead you to a huge bill. And is it about, like, exactly like you're saying, it seems immoral to be, either not saving someone's life or saving someone's life and then being like, okay, we saved your life. Here's $1 million bill. And not that I would ever say like, oh, but that's shocking. And the stress of that, like stress is a killer too.
Well, people really feel that they're being taken advantage of at every turn. So we're paying more for procedures than any country in the world, right? We're paying more for medications than any country in the world. So you're being gouged on that end, and then you're paying insurances and co-insurances that really add up, right? In some cases, folks have really big deductibles, which is like not having any insurance at all, really, right? And then you then have to go through the process where you are, either denied or deferred or whatever the case may be. And I heard, and I'm not sure if this is actually true, but the same CEO, um, you know, uh, uh, enabled AI to weigh in on whether people's claims or whatnot were paid or denied or whatever. So you don't even have a human connection. I'm not sure if this is true, so you can fact check me on this. But we were talking about AI, right?
Yeah.
And our AI now going to be employed to make decisions about the kind of healthcare that we receive, right? So it's really.
Without the human sensitivity of the individual story and because AI it can get very smart, but it's not aware yet of the consequences of behaviors, right? So, and I don't know if I want it to be aware, because it might judge humans as just awful individuals with how we
Oh, I
treat
think
each
it's
other.
already. I think it's already done that. I,
Those early New York Times stories of how it was sad about the way it was talked to with some of the advanced levels, I was like, I can't read these anymore because I feel like we're on the cusp of revolution or the Matrix movie. Like, either a social revolution or the AI just comes in and we're fighting machines. Um, but it feels like we are watching so much change right now, which Seoul, Korea, not Seoul, Korea, but South Korea. I'm thinking Seoul for for some other reason, but that was the other thing that was big in the news. And some of the images coming. Have you seen some of the images, Melania?
What's going on?
Oh, so South Korea,
They're about to oust their leader, right?
they had martial law declared for a
Mhm.
really short period of time. And so the populace went out in force against military, and there's these images of citizens going up against the military with large guns. And there's this one image I think that has been going around of a woman, and she takes the machine gun and she's just pushing against the soldier, and she's just like, aren't you embarrassed, aren't you embarrassed of the leader, is what she's yelling. But she's this petite, short woman, and she's just pushing him and just literally taking the machine gun and like shaking him with it. And then there's another one I saw where like this gentleman is filming and the military guy goes to grab it and he grabs his arm, the non-military, spins him around and is like, not today, sir. Like, you're not taking my phone. So it's over, right? They are now looking at getting rid of their leader. But imagine if mass deportation happened here, and they declared martial law. Would we go out like that as a public? Would we protest like that? I don't know, because there's a little bit of a different dynamic in South Korea where they are not that long from the last time they were living under military law, and so it's fresh in their minds. I think in the US, I hate to say, we've been uh so we felt so sort of in this bubble of no sort of it's like, skirmishes have had here on a war scale, that we are so distanced. When our military has gone out, it has been to other countries. We don't have this sort of visual memory of that, because many of us don't remember the images of the 60s and 70s because we weren't alive, or we were so young that it's not fresh in our minds. So I am seeing more people that have been fresh from oppression who are willing to stand up to the military, and I wonder if we have that same spirit in the US sometimes,
Well, we'll see.
especially with us coming in.
Yeah, we'll see, because the incoming president has no qualms about using the military, against American citizens. So we will see, where we stand on that. But to change the subject, have you heard of something called, what is it called? Oh God, one of my pleasures, my guilty pleasures. It is called later. No, no, no. What I was thinking about is, speaking of technology, there are increasingly more apps out there. There's one called Time Left. Have you heard of that? Time Left?
No.
Time Left is an app that helps and bring strangers together for dinner, right? People are,
I thought you were going to say it was like how to plan your funeral.
no, God, no.
Time left.
Yeah,
I
that
need
you
to
got,
hear about this, because
no,
what's the angle on this? Because
no,
Mark,
no, it's really simple. The fact that people are, it's not necessarily for dating, but
okay.
people are hopeful, like maybe there'll be somebody at this dinner that will, spark my interest. But I think one of the other trends is that people may start to move away from these legacy, dating apps. But they're kind of tired of the swipe left kind of mentality out there. Dr. Vivek Murphy a few years ago said that, loneliness and separation was at epidemic levels. And people are really trying to find different ways to connect, meet people who are, they may not ever meet. And so there are apps out there that are helping to, arrange these dinners, for strangers. And I think it's really kind of cool because you just never know who's going to be at your table.
Well, yeah, that is kind of cool to like show up to maybe have similar interests. You don't know who they're going to be, but I also know that you're into that Love Is Blind show and being surprised by who falls in love. So,
Don't be
but like
telling my secrets, okay?
secrets have been told. Like I do think like I love apps. Like I moderate for a dating app. Um and I do think maybe we could form community without like technology and apps. Like if we were less afraid that the person in the supermarket or in like a store when you're out, like when they look at you and they're like, "Hey," if I didn't think that person was a serial killer, I might say, "Hey," back. But I've watched so many shows on Netflix now and like other media and read so many books that like now I'm like, why are you smiling at me? What do you want to do? Are you picturing my body parts like male or
No,
female, like dead and cut up? Like
I think we're just living a
I
different time these days. I mean, honestly,
how many times have you met like a stranger who's become a friend that it wasn't like, okay, before I like really
well,
start hanging
well,
out with you? I've
probably never, right? But the point is that one, we've grown up, and there's generations now who have been taught don't talk to strangers, right? So
exactly.
we don't make those connections, and we live different lives. And here's the thing: I love technology, and here's the thing: I love business, and I love technology, and I love when people find different types of solutions for problems, right? So let's say you are a solo entrepreneur, or you work from home or whatever. You don't necessarily have office interactions. You're not out and about, right? So, how do you increase the likelihood of just meeting, people, having contact? You might be an introvert, right? And and it's difficult for you by nature to make connection, with strangers or whatever. So this kind of forces you out of your comfort zone. It forces you out of your orbit. We all have orbits. You go to the same place, the grocery shop, you get your laundry, you go here to get your nails done or whatever your world is, and you rotate. You go visit your family, you rotate in that orbit. This takes you out of your orbit without you having to do a whole hell of a lot, which I think is kind of cool, and it
And
puts
the
you
and
together.
the name of it again, in case they wanna
That is
sponsor you?
uh, this may come
You're
to you
talking it up like an ad.
in the future from Time Left, an
Time
app
left.
that helps strangers meet, right? But I just thought it was, kind of a cool concept. I like it.
And you know what? It is because, like, I will say, moderating on one of those more legacy-based or swipe-based apps, one of the things I see over and over again is people complaining about, like, no one ever talks to each other. Like, everybody kind of or, like, everybody kinda just swipes or reaches out, but then doesn't follow through, or even if there's community boards to these things, like, most people post like they do on Instagram, right? Like or Facebook, there isn't that like now we're going to meet in the real world. It seems like that doesn't happen that often. And I will say sometimes I'll watch like interactions on Facebook or like because I like to be an observer, uh or like other or like dating apps and things like that, and I'll think, wow, these two people or these people would make great friends. They have same interests, but and they're complaining about not having friends or dating or whatever. I'm like, I feel like I could be a online observer and hook people up and be like, look, you guys are I noticed you talk about the same stuff. Like, why don't you get together and here's the day? But that would be very time consuming. But I guess that's what that time left is about, like connecting people who are willing to go outside and trust that, you know.
And to be honest with you, it's not, I think forming friendships, I think friendship happens instantaneously, right? You have a connection with someone, and for whatever reason you continue the dialogue, you meet or whatever, and you're friends, right? You don't wake up one day and go, you know what, I think Tahisha's my friend, right? But what I and so but I think, friendships can take some time to develop, but maybe, and we have our core group of friends, but maybe our core group of friends doesn't give us everything that we need,
Mm.
right? And I am a person that when I work at a place, I end up typically getting a lifelong friend, right? As you
We
know, the
worked
case,
together at one
right?
point.
As you are, case in point. But I do have a real urge to meet new people, and I'm very shy. I'm painfully shy. So it would be kind of cool to be, just and you don't. It doesn't have to be a long-term thing. It just could be a pleasant evening, right? Listening to something other than the same kind of talk that you typically get in your orbit. So I think it's kind of cool, and it'll be very interesting to see how these types of things grow, because I think really people are really craving real, authentic human connection.
And that brings us back to kind of what we started with, that human connection and being human is really a driver for us as a community and society. And when we don't have human connection, or we don't feel like we're being too human to each other, maybe that's why these things happen. Like we feel so disconnected. It's easy to think I could take a life because I feel just at the end of my wits and no one's helping me. Maybe if we had stronger community, and I'm not saying that this is the cause of this, but maybe if we had stronger community, we would be feeling less lonely. We would be feeling less apathetic. We would be less likely to write comments out in the public that someone probably, and remember, this guy had children, he had a wife, that one, like thinking about the internet is sort of out there, it's permanent. Imagine that person's child reading this 15 years from now, 20 years from now, and they know this person as a father, right? Like, and reading these, no one cared that this person was killed. Like, that would be so heartbreaking. Like, even if my father wasn't the greatest person in the world, to read that no one cared when he died on a mass, like that's disheartening for us as
Mhm.
a society. Um, so, and I know it's easy for us to have, like, this like hate tax on everything. This sort of like, well, like that's just the price of like living a life like that. Like,
Mhm.
it isn't. However, we want to end up, whether that be rich and leaning into the 1% or struggling and working, I think we still have to realize we're human beings. And Melania, I know you agree with that piece of it. Yes, it is reprehensible what insurance companies and corporations are doing when they're trying to make this profit. And so maybe, there are some people who are talking about how much is too much. They already have the much already, but they already have tons of money. So it's nice to reflect when you're already rich, but what are you going to do about that, right? Like, and is it going to be a knee-jerk reaction by corporations to, instead of addressing the real problem, which is disparities, is it going to be just locking down more? Like, is this going to change anything? And that's the sad part in the US. Like, we have these horrible things happen, shootings at schools, shootings of CEOs that make you go like, hey, maybe we need to make some societal changes, and we don't do anything of significance.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think I personally understood the character of this country when there was that mass shooting at that elementary school, and no gun law reform came from that. Um, I understood that the soul of this country was lost, if we ever had a soul. To be quite honest, it has always been a country that has embraced brutality. And when we talk about protecting kids and things of that nature, we don't protect children in our society. And I think that and I have no children, but I advocate for children all the time. And I think that no child should go to school afraid. I remember when I was in grade school, we used to prepare for nuclear war.
Mm.
So if a bomb was dropped, we were supposed to hide underneath our desk, which is just really just a waste of time if someone drops a nuclear bomb,
You
right?
know, I also remember doing those.
Yeah.
And so when the active shoot like so kids do active shooter
Yes,
drills
they
now,
do.
and hospitals do them too, but it's like now we have this internal fear of like someone coming in and shooting in a classroom. But I do remember in the 80s when we were at like, like the nuclear arms race piece, where we would have this like, oh, like what if a bomb gets dropped, and we would do that, like, and I didn't think of that or remember that until you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
um
I used to go
Wow,
to
schools
bed
have
at
been scary for
it
kids for a
it is
long
scary. I
time.
remember saying my prayers at night when I prayed, right? And I would pray that we didn't have a nuclear bomb dropped on us, right? No kid should have that fear. No child should have a fear that somebody's going to come in their classroom and kill them and shoot them. No parent should 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 have to take a second look at their kid walking down the driveway to get on the bus because it could be the last time they ever see them alive. That is not acceptable in a civilized society, right? It's just not. But yet and still, and we call ourselves one of the richest countries on the planet, yet and still this is our reality here. And what I say, and I've been sharing with you, I've been following more Scandinavian content creators these days, and just for folks who, if you don't travel, you should travel. And if you don't travel and you don't have the means to travel these days, you can always travel via the internet. And to understand that there are cultures, country cultures out there that don't live under the stress and the violence and the consumerism that we as Americans do, and the disconnection. Again, I was, doing learning more about some of the culture and the traditions of some of these Scandinavian countries, and I was like, holy cow! I was born in Buffalo, but I'm Scandinavian. I mean,
Listen,
I
no, no, no. Scandinavia is cold, and we opened this
I
saying
know,
how cold we were.
I know, but
We're
I
not
can
going to
embrace
Scandinavia,
I
even
can
though it's wonderful.
I can embrace some of their traditions. I didn't
You
say I was
can.
going to move there, but what I can say is that
Unless Scandinavia wants to bring you there, then Melania's fine with it.
I'm fine with it. And here's
Yes.
the thing with global warming, it would be 80
It'll be
there
warm
and
soon, so
soon, right? But no, but the truth is that they really, I think they have it right in terms of what is important and what is meaningful, and that means their relationships, right? That means their education, right? But not education just to say that I have a PhD. It's like that they feel that everybody should be educated, and have access to education. People should have access to health care. People should be healthy, right? These are our dog eat dog world kind of mentality is really unhealthy, and as such, on a busy Wednesday or Tuesday morning, somebody walking down a busy New York street gets killed. That's not.
It's
I
not.
mean, is this the
Yeah.
world we really want?
Yeah.
I don't.
I agree with you completely. Um, though I still think, like Melonya and I are still very hopeful that things will always get better as we, become better critical thinkers and really start questioning, like, what is the world we want to live in? How do we want to live in this world? Well, I'm going to close this out. We have enjoyed hanging out. Talking the talk, shooting the breeze, talking. We talked a lot of you know, news, current events that happened this week. Um, and I just always love chatting with you. You love chatting with me. No.
I do. I do. I do.
So don't forget to join us next Friday, same time, maybe different length. Who knows? We talk till, till almost the top of the hour. I'm Tahitia.
I'm Melonya.
And we will see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the event that what is this? Empty Fridays. Don't forget to subscribe to Empty Fridays. Please follow us on our social pages. Check out the app Melonya was talking about. If you want the name of it, ping her. She will tell you that whatever that app is. If you want to ping her too, time left. Reach out, and we will see y'all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on MT Fridays. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more insightful discussions every Friday. Remember, the brain drain stops here, so keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media or visiting our website. Until next time, stay curious and keep filling your mind with knowledge. See you next week, Friday, on MT Fridays.